Today, we are jumping right into the high-stakes world of biotech. We're going to take a really close look at a company called Innate Pharma. They're right on the front lines, developing new ways to fight cancer. We're going to be breaking down their latest annual report to figure out that crucial make or break balance between groundbreaking science and, well, financial survival.
So let's get right to it. Innate Pharma is all about immunotherapy, which is this incredible field that basically weaponizes our own immune systems to go after cancer. By digging into their 2025 report, we're going to get a super clear picture of where they stand. You know, what's happening with their science, how their bank account looks, and what their game plan is for the future.
The message from the top is pure confidence. The CEO is talking about strong execution and seeing promising early signals from a new drug. But that's the official story, right? The big question is, what's the reality behind that press release? Let's find out.
All right, to really get the full picture, we're going to look at 5 key areas. We'll kick things off with their drug pipeline. That's the exciting part. Then we'll get into the numbers and look at the finances. After that, we'll analyze their strategy and the challenges they're up against before tying it all together for the big picture outlook.
Okay, first up, the science. This is the absolute heart of any biotech company, right? It's all about the potential breakthroughs cooking in the lab that could one day completely change the game for patients.
So, Innate's pipeline has 4 key players. First, there's lacutamab. That's their lead drug candidate. Then you've got IPH4502, a really cool next-gen therapy that's showing some promising early signs. And then there are 2 major partnerships with the pharma giant AstraZeneca for drugs called monalizumab and IPH5201. You can think of these as their shots on goal. Each one is a potential new weapon in the fight against cancer.
Now, the technology behind a drug like IPH4502 is just fascinating. It's called an antibody-drug conjugate, or ADC for short. The absolute easiest way to think about it is like a guided missile for cancer. The antibody part, that's the guidance system. It's programmed to hunt down and lock on to cancer cells. And the drug part, that's the warhead, a super potent toxin that gets delivered right to the tumor's doorstep. This precision is a game changer because it helps avoid all that collateral damage to healthy cells you see with traditional chemo.
So let's zoom in on their star player, lacutamab. It's being developed to treat a really rare and aggressive skin cancer called cutaneous T-cell lymphoma. This is exactly what modern medicine is about, targeting these tough diseases where new options are just desperately needed.
And believe me, getting a drug to patients is a long, long road. Lacutamab has already cleared a phase 2 trial, which is where you test if it actually works, and the results were so good that the FDA gave it breakthrough therapy designation. Now that is a huge deal. It's basically a signal from regulators that they see this drug's potential and it helps speed up the whole process. The final hurdle is a big phase 3 trial which is set to kick off in late 2026.
So as you can see, 2026 is shaping up to be an absolutely pivotal year. They're going to finish restructuring the company, then in April they'll present some really important data, and in the second half of the year, boom, they'll start that crucial lacutamab phase 3 trial and get the results for their other big partner drug. These are the make or break moments everyone is watching.
Okay, we've seen the incredible scientific promise, but all that innovation, all those upcoming trials, they come with a seriously hefty price tag. So let's switch gears and look at the financial reality of actually funding all this.
And this is the key number right here. At the end of 2025, Innate Pharma had 44.8 million euros in cash. Think of this as the fuel in their tank to get everything we just talked about done.
Now, at first glance, this might look pretty alarming, right? A 55% drop in revenue? But for a clinical stage company like this, that number doesn't tell the whole story. See, their income isn't from sales. It's from these big, chunky, and kind of unpredictable milestone payments from partners like AstraZeneca. So this drop is more about the timing of those checks, not a sign that the business itself is failing.
This slide really just captures the brutal reality for most biotech startups. On the left, you've got the money coming in, 9 million euros. And on the right, the money going out just for research and development, a massive 43.6 million. They are spending almost 5 times what they're bringing in. That is a huge bet that one of their drugs will eventually hit it big.
And if you look a bit closer here, you can see they've actually managed to cut their R&D spending compared to last year. So even though their revenue was way down, they controlled their costs enough to keep their overall net loss pretty stable, right around 49 million euros. It shows they're being really careful with the money they've got.
Okay, so you've got a promising pipeline, but you are burning through cash like there's no tomorrow. How on earth do you manage that? Well, this brings us to their strategy, and the biggest challenge they're facing. They are in a race against the clock.
And here it is, the deadline.
Based on how much they're spending, the company predicts their cash is going to run out by the end of the third quarter of 2026. And let me tell you, in the world of drug development, that is right around the corner.
So this really raises the central question for everyone involved, from the scientists to the investors. With that clock ticking down so fast, how do they find the money to keep their most promising trials, like that big one for lacutamab, on track?
Well, the company has a four-part strategy to try and extend that runway. They're out there trying to find new pharma partners, and they're negotiating financing deals based on future drug sales, which is kind of like getting cash now in exchange for a piece of the profits later on. Internally, they're focusing only on their most promising research projects and cutting costs everywhere else. It's all about finding new money while spending what you have a lot more wisely.
And, a strategy like this comes with some really tough decisions. They've already had to shut down an early-stage research program, and they're planning layoffs. These are not easy choices to make, but they are absolutely necessary to save cash for the drugs that have the best shot at making it to the finish line.
So, let's pull all these threads together now for the big picture. What we're looking at here is a classic biotech story, and it's defined by this fundamental tension between incredible scientific promise on one side and just immense financial pressure on the other. On one side of the scale, you have all this promise, a unique pipeline of drugs with huge clinical results expected in 2026. But on the other side of the scale, you've got the pressure, a financial clock ticking down to late 2026. They urgently, desperately need more money. And ideally, they need it from partnerships or deals that don't hurt the value of the company for its current shareholders.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question. Innate Pharma is basically on a bridge. On one side is brilliant science that could truly change patients' lives. On the other side is a stable, sustainable business. And the gap between them? It's their shrinking pile of cash. The next year is going to be absolutely critical in deciding whether or not they can make it all the way to the other side.